So AWS VPC is a network infrastructure, okay, and network infrastructure architecture within the AWS cloud. So VPC would create within the AWS cloud, which closely resembles a traditional network. It is same like you have traditional network in your on premises. Similarly, you can create a network on the AWS, which is known as a VPC. It isolates your network infrastructure under your account from other accounts so that network should not be conflicts. So this is completely known as a virtual. Let's say um, we have two users.
Hi there. Hi, Amar. I have a doubt.
Hi, Raj. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, hi, Amar. I have a doubt. It's like when if what if we our internet breakthrough is in AWS? Like if we have a, VPN tunnel from one place to other place, and if we have a internet breakout at AWS, then how does it
It
work?
would be it would be it can be happen. I would
It
explain
can be
here.
happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I just want to explain a few things. Then I would talk about internet breakout as well. Okay. So let's say we have two account. One account is let me just change the color. One account is created by user A in AWS. User A has created one account, and the other account is created by user B. User A creates on VPC over the AWS. Okay. So AWS, this is AWS cloud. So user A has created his own VPC over here. Let's say this VPC belongs to user A. Okay. This is VPC of user A. And user B also created his own VPC over here on AWS cloud. Okay. Can a VPC of user A and VPC of user B going to be conflicted? It is not, because AWS has designed their network in such way so that user can create a VPC and those VPC would remain a private for each of the user, and it would not conflict with other users VPC. So that the things is mentioned here. It isolate your network infrastructure under your account, means whatever network infrastructure you are going to create. We will talk about network infrastructure as well. Within the VPC, you can create a lot of network infrastructure. So whatever the network infrastructure you would create within the VPC, in your VPC, the same network infrastructure, if created by user B as well, they are not going to conflict each other. Okay. So we just understand that VPC is a virtual space, we can say, over the AWS cloud, where we can create network infrastructure. Okay. And define the architecture of the network. Okay. And that similarly we use on the traditional network. For example, I just taken the example on traditional network, like on your on premises. What you does basically, you build a network. You decide that you are going to take this space 10.0.0.0/8, and within this space you are going to define different component. You would define subnet. Post defining the subnet, you are going to assign those subnets to systems. In that subnet, they should not communicate to each other, so you would create a VLAN. The same way you here you can do that. Okay. In VPC also same thing you can do that, but in a different way. Okay. Now, Raz, you were talking about your internet breakout, that what if you just want to send the internet traffic to AWS internet gateway. So let's say this is your AWS, and here you have created a VPC. Within the VPC, you have the internet gateway. Okay, let's say this is internet gateway, and you just which is connecting further to internet. So this is AWS cloud, and this is your internet. So if you have on-premises network, let's say this is your on-prem network, and you want to send entire traffic over the internet gateway. So what you need to do on-premises, you should have the connectivity to AWS using a VPN, or we can say direct connect.
Oh,
This is a link, direct connect link. Again, it is a secure. And here on premises, you can route the traffic on the router, whatever your external router. You can create a BGP peering between these two. Okay, this one and this one, and on this router you can route the traffic towards default route you can put towards the AWS gateway. Through this, you can send the traffic to internet traffic towards the AWS gateway, and that is further going to send the traffic via internet. So this is also possible. Or it is also possible that any resources on the AWS, if they want to access internet, they should not use this internet gateway of AWS, but it should go via on-premises. So same way you can route the traffic towards on-premises as well. So traffic routing is
yeah,
just
now I
on our
understood.
hand. Yeah. Okay, when you create a VPC, for VPC, what you define? You define the CIDR or VLSM networking concept here. That means when I say let's create a VPC, so while creation of the VPC, it would ask you what the network range you want to define. Okay, so you would define in the same way like you define in a CIDR or VLSM mechanism. So here you can take, for example, let's say it has given you option while creation of the VPC that it is asking for network uh, range. So here you can define in this way like 10.0.0.0/8. In this way you can define the range of your VPC. That means whatever the subnet you are going to create further, this is your VPC range. So within the VPC, you are going to create a subnet. So those subnet would be part of these CIDR range. Okay. So like if you have taken one CIDR over here, so all the subnet you can define for the same CIDR. Okay. By default, AWS, when you create an account on AWS, so by default it would create a default VPC for you. Okay, there is a default VPC it is going to create for you. Okay, in every region will have the default VPC, and it has a predefined subnet in each zone. But if you want to customize the things according to you, okay, so you can create your own VPC and do the customization. So customization can be done for on each level, for subnet level or other component as well. Okay, this VPC, if you just want to connect the VPC to your on-premises network, so again, how you can connect it? This is, let's say this is on-prem and you want to connect, so you can use the VPN connection or you can use direct connect. Okay, so using the VPN or direct connect, you can connect to your on-premises network. How many maximum VPC you can create in your account? So maximum VPC you can create 5. Okay, remember the range. And in one VPC, how many subnets you can create? 200 subnets within the one VPC. Okay, for VPC, how many elastic IP? That means these are the public IP can be allocated. It can be allocated 5. now, but you can increase that. By default, this is 5 elastic IP you can allocate to the VPC. Elastic IP is a public IP, like reserve public IP. It's a static public IP. If you want to define for your VPC, how many maximum public IP you can define? 5. But if you require to increase this public IP, so yes, you can request AWS and that is going to be increased. When you create a VPC, by default, when you create a VPC, DSCP, network ACL, security group will be automatically created. That means with the VPC creation, automatic DSCP, automatic network ACL, and automatic security group gets created. We are going to talk about what is network ACL, security group, etc. This is similar as a firewall. On the firewall, we put the rule to allow or deny. Here we can do same. We can put the rule to allow the traffic, right? So when you create a VPC, okay, so with the VPC, automatically DSCP and NACL security groups, all these gets created. A VPC is confined to an AWS region, does not extend between the regions. That means, let's say you have created a VPC in X region, okay, and now you want to extend this up to Y region. It's not possible. Let's say you have your VPC is in Mumbai, right? But you want to extend this to London. This is not possible. So this is a region basic. It cannot be extended between the region. However, there is a peering concept. If you just want to make the communication between X region VPC and Y region VPC, so between that you can do the peering. But if you want to just extend your VPC across the region, this is not possible. Please do let me know if there is any question for any point. If not, so I'm just going to explain here. This is a simple design of the VPC. You can see here, this is, let's say this is a region. Okay, so VPC is a region wise. VPC would be created over the region. Okay, so we can say that this line you can see here, this black line. This black line is indicating that this is a VPC. This is entire VPC over the AWS. You have AWS cloud, and on the AWS cloud, you can create a VPC. And within the VPC, you can create subnets. So subnet could be observability zone. One subnet you can create in observability zone A, and other subnet you can create within the observability zone B. Okay, because you know that in one region we could have a multiple observability zone. For example, in Mumbai we have 3 observability zone, right? So let's say you have created a VPC in Mumbai. So this VPC would be created in a Mumbai region, and within the region you can create multiple subnet, and those multiple subnet either you can create in same zone or you can create on a different zone. It's up to you. Okay, so we can say that a subnet created within the observability zone and cannot be replicated in the different observability zone. That means, let's say you have created a subnet in zone A. So same subnet would not replicate in a zone B observability zone. Like you have seen about S3 bucket, right? What you have seen about S3 bucket? You have seen that if you create a S3 bucket in a zone A, observability zone 1, so by default it is going to replicate with the other zone as well. Okay, it would be replicating on a observability zone 2, observability zone on 3 as well, right? Because this is a default property of your S3 bucket. But the subnet default property is when you create a subnet in zone 1, observability zone A, this subnet is not going to replicate on a observability zone B. That means this would only reside within a one zone. Replication is not possible for the subnet. post the creation of VPC, primary CIDR can be changed. Sorry, cannot be changed. Let's say you have created a VPC, okay, and for this VPC you have defined that what is the CIDR for this VPC. Let's say you have decided that 10.0.0.0/16 you have decided. Now later you thought the subnet range you have taken, which is small, maybe you may require more system to connect through this subnet. I mean this CIDR, more subnet you require to create, and this may be this is a less. Okay, so now you just want to decide it to change it. You want to decide it to change to 10.0.0.0/8. You just want to change it later, so you cannot change. This is a primary CIDR. This is a primary CIDR. You cannot change. Okay, but you can add extended by extra CIDR range. That means this is a primary CIDR. You can just cannot change, but additional CIDR you can also add over here. For example, you just want to define for the same VPC, you just want to define that 192.168.0.0/16. This should also be used. Yes, this can be defined. You want that 172.16.0.0/24. This should be also used. So you can define. So multiple CIDR you can define to the VPC, but primary you cannot change. Okay, there is a catch over here. If you want to define additional CIDR for these two locations, these two things, AWS China location or AWS for the US government cloud, it is not possible to add additional CIDR for these two locations. So what is the solution? If you require additional CIDR, then I mean you really want to change the CIDR. Okay, so for that you require to create new VPC. Yeah. Okay, also one more thing, when you create a subnet within the VPC, so let's say this is your VPC. Okay, this is your VPC, and within this VPC you have created subnet 1, subnet 2. For subnet 1 you have decided that it would be 10.0.0.0/24, and if you define same subnet to another zone, rather it is whether this is going to create in another zone, but you cannot overlap the subnets within the VPC. It cannot be overlapped. Means the subnet within the VPC would be unique, like you have in on-premises network. Right. So this is about the VPC. Any questions so far? Okay, if no, let's go further.
No.
All right, thanks. So let's understand types of VPC. There are two types of VPC. Okay, as I told you, default VPC and custom VPC. So in default VPC, it gets created when you create AWS account, and it would be going to reside within the all region of AWS. That's a default VPC. So while creation of the account, when you log in, and if you want to create any instances, by default that instances would have the VPC, and it would be just going to be part of default VPC. So default VPC gets created while creation of an account only. Okay, for AWS region. And default CIDR with the VPC, what it is going to create? With the VPC, it is going to create default CIDR, security group, NACL, and routing table. This is by default it is going to create. So if you have a default VPC, you don't need to worry about that when you are creating any instance, whether it would get internet access or not. For example, you might have seen in a previous lecture, when I created any machine, I did not worry about that this machine would be able to access internet or not. By default, I do not require to do any kind of routing, okay, as it is by default created the CIDR range. It has a default CIDR range, default security group as well, default network access control as well, and routing table. Okay, with this also it has a internet gateway. So internet gateway in a VPC provides the internet to the resources which is created within the VPC. Okay, so like within the VPC, let's say you have a subnet, and in that subnet you have created a machine which is instance. Okay, let's say this is a Windows instance, and you require internet connection on this. So if it is part of default VPC, this machine is part of default VPC. So it is going to use a default routing gateway, which is internet gateway, to access the internet. Okay, and this gateway would reside within the AWS. Okay, so that means if this machine accessing the internet, which resources this is using? This is using AWS resources. So this is about the default VPC. Okay, it has the internet gateway, it has the default CIDR, security group, NSVL, and routing table. So basically, when you create a VPC, which is custom VPC, and you just want to provide internet access to your resources, you require to create the gateway, you require to create a subnets, you require to create CIDR range. So that is a custom VPC. This is a custom VPC. If you are going to create a custom VPC, what is required to create? It is created by account owner. That means if you are an account owner, so you would create a custom VPC. You can create custom VPC. You can define your own CIDR range. You can define your own security group, your own network access control list, and your own routing table. And if in any particular subnet or in the VPC required internet connection, so for that you can create the internet gateway. Okay, so let me just show you some default configuration of the VPC. Okay, and later I'm just going to create this. So let me just show you default VPC. So this is AWS, right? And here you can go to service and then network and content delivery, and you can click on the VPC. So you would be seeing here if there is any VPC created, so you can see the VPC. So right now you can see there is a one VPC, 3 subnets, one route table, one internet gateway, one DSCP option set, and what else? One network ACL, 4 security group. This is by default we are able to see. So let's see the VPC, how many VPC we have, and what is the name of that VPC. This is the VPC. You can see this is the VPC ID, and you can see this is the default CIDR for this particular VPC. 172.31.0.16. I didn't create. If you have account, it would also going to show you. Okay, so this is a default VPC. You can see the detail over here. This is the VPC ID. Okay, here DSCP option is set. Okay, for this particular VPC, what is the DSCP option is set? You can see here. You can see here. This is the DSCP option is set. Let me just back. Now I'm just going to VPC dashboard. You can see there are 3 subnets created. This is again default subnet. Okay, within that VPC, and you can see here, this is part of your default VPC. These are the three subnets. Okay, you can see that routing table. This is the routing table, and in this routing table, you can see the routes. Here, this is the routing table, and you can see here what all the subnet is associated with this. So here you can see the routes. Within the VPC, if any subnet want to communicate, how it is communicating using local target. That means when you create any resources over here within the VPC, always remember, if you create any resource within the VPC, by default, all resources going to communicate to each other. There is no limitation. So let's say you have created a VPC. For this VPC, let's say you have defined that this is 172.16.0.0/16, and within this VPC you have created two or three subnets. Okay, one subnet you have created 172.16.0.0/24. Other subnet you have created 172.16.0. Sorry, .1.0/24, and then 172.16.2.0/24. So you have created three subnets over here within the VPC. Okay, so it is showing you logically this is a segregated, but this is not segregated. Any resource which is over here, let's say you have a Linux server over here, a Linux server, and you have a Windows server over here, and then you have a Windows 10 machine over here. Okay, Windows 10 machine over here. So by default, they all are in a flat network. Means within the VPC, every subnet would be able to communicate to each other. Why? It is just because of the routing table. If you see on the router, on VPC here, you can see the routing table. That within this subnet CIDR range, which is your VPC CIDR range, this is a VPC CIDR range. So how they are going to communicate within this subnet? They are going to communicate via local. So when it is selected target local here, that means every subnet would be able to communicate to each other. However, you can modify the routing table, but not a default one. And if they want to go over the internet, how they are going? They are going using internet gateway. This is a gateway ID, and this is nothing but this is an internet gateway. Okay, and both routes are, these are the two routes, and both routes are active. That means both are routes are okay. Is that clear?
So these are the means in the single VPC means these resources are by default for each and every person means it's same.
Yeah.
Means like that subnets like routing table and
Yes.
that.
This would be same for each and every one.
Because
For example, if you
for
go
my account it is showing 6 subnets, and for you it's showing 3 means
so
why?
maybe you have created VPC by
No,
mistake.
no,
No,
no. It's showing means 6.
usually it is same. Not sure if they
Yeah,
have changed any new thing.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
because basically in cloud
Hmm.
there are a lot of changes on the back end. They usually does.
Okay.
So I think this should be this should remain same,
So
but it depends on the center
so
as well.
means they are using IPv4 here. So is that possible that we can use IPv6 that CIDR?
Yeah, yeah, you can do that.
Means
It
still that Amazon
it does
using or
support.
not? It does support. Okay.
It does support, yes.
Okay.
In which data center you are? I am in Ohio.
I mean, it's showing US East
That may be the reason.
and Virginia. It is showing and
Yeah.
Virginia. Yeah.
Virginia is a advanced data center.
Okay.
Over there, you would get all the services. Yeah.
Not Virginia. You get all the services. Yes.
So yeah. So in this VPC, you can see these things. Apart from that, you can see the subnets. So these are the subnet that is associated with this particular VPC. So these are the three subnet, and you can see each subnet ID. And this, why I'm showing you here, because these are the associated subnets. So all three subnets are associated this routing table. This is nothing but this is a route table. And in AWS, this is also known as a route table. Okay, so this route table uh, is having three subnets. This is associated with those three subnets. Okay, if you want to see the route propagation, okay, like if you want to propagate the route, so you can use this. So this is the default things you can see. Let me just go back. And similarly, you can see the default part like security group. So here you can see the, sorry, after the route table, I would go to the internet gateway, and this is default created. So this is the internet which is by default created. So this internet gateway is providing internet to the instances or machines, which is part of any of the subnet of this VPC. Okay, and then we have the DSCP option. By default, it is set. Okay, and then network ACL. So when DSCP option is set, so any instances within the VPC, if you create, it would get default IP just because of DSCP option. Then you can see network ACL. So this is network ACL. So this is acting as a network firewall over here, which is going to protect the entire subnet. And this ACL is associated with those three subnets. So you can see this is the ACL. And within this ACL, you are not able to see any rules. So by default, everything is allowed. It is mentioned here default. This is rule number 100, and it is showing that this is everything is allowed. So because this is on 100 and this is on star, so always it is giving the priority to the lowest number, and here you can see everything is allowed. So there is no inbound and outbound blocks for the default network ACL. So that means if you put any instance in these VPC or these in those subnets, so by default that instance have the complete access on the both side. So this is the network ACL you can see, and then this is the security group. So there is a default security group which you can see here, and these were created when we have created the machines. Okay, so in this system you are able to see those four security group, but this is a default one which is going to apply with the network interface card if you haven't associated the security group to any other instance. Okay, so I hope you got it, and we will create a VPC in some times. Okay, when we learn all the component. Now let's go to go and understand VPC components. So there are different types of component. These are the main component you can see here. In VPC, you could have a subnet, you could have an implied router, you could have a routing table. Okay, you could have an internet gateway, you could have a NAT gateway, you could have a network ACL, security groups, connection peering, okay, which is known as the VPC peering, and finally VPN or VPN gateway. So these are the component of the VPC. Okay, so if you go here, and if you want to see the services which is within the network services, so all these things you can see within the VPC. What all the component you can see on the left side, you can see the subnet, route table, internet gateway. Okay, egress only internet gateway, which is just forwarding one, then DSCP option, NAT gateway, etc. So all these are the components you can see. So I'm just going to talk about them one by one. So let's talk about the subnets and let's learn the subnet types, etc. So what is the subnet? So basically it is a range of IP address within the VPC. Okay. So it could be a public subnet or could be private subnet. There are two types of subnet. Okay, public and private. A public subnet, if a subnet has a route to AWS Internet Gateway, that means let's say you have created a subnet over here, and when you check the routes for this subnet, you find out that the default route, that is 0.0/0, is Internet Gateway of AWS, something like that. So in the subnet, let's say this is your subnet, and you check if the default route is an internet gateway. So this could be a public subnet. So I'm just taking example of picture here, public and private, and then we will talk about them. So we can take example of this. Here you can see we have two subnet. One is the public subnet and other is the private subnet. So in public subnet, if you the route for internet, what is it is mentioned? It is mentioned that internet gateway, a public subnet would have the internet access. The internet access, but private subnet would not have internet access. That means you can just forget about this particular route. This is the private subnet. In private subnet, by default, there is no internet access. However, they can talk within the VPC. You can see here the private and public subnet both are created within the VPC. So this subnet machine, so let's say you have some subnet database server over here, and you have a web server on your private, on your public. You have a web server. Let's say this is a web server. So to function this web server, which is internet, okay, it required internet connection, right? So for user, they want to access this web server using public IP. They are going to access the web server. Web server is going to associate not a local, but here it is on this private subnet. So by default, because of flat network, they would talk to each other. This web server is going to talk to the database. This internet user directly cannot reach to this database because this database is on private subnet and this subnet does not have an internet. Okay, you got my point. So public subnet would have an internet. So how you would identify when you check the routing table, okay, of each subnet, you find the route towards the internet gateway. So you can identify this is a public subnet. And if you find the default route towards the internet gateway, you can identify that this is a private subnet. Okay, that's what it is mentioned. Okay, so if in instance in a public subnet communicate over internet using IP version 4, it must have the public IP version 4 and elastic IP. So that means what? There are two things. Let's say you have a public subnet. This is a public subnet, and you got a machine. You created a machine. This machine required to communicate over the internet. This want to send something over the internet. Either you just want to browse internet through this instance. Okay. So in this instance, there is required. What it is required? It is required a public IP. A public IP which would be dynamic, public IP which is fixed, okay, which is static basically. Fixed means static public IP. You know difference between static and dynamic public IP. So in public IP, let's say this is dynamic. That means if this must get rebooted, there are chances that the IP, public IP of this machine gets changed if it is defined dynamic. But if the public IP is a fixed, okay, so whether this machine gets booted down, terminated, okay, the public IP would remain, sorry, deleted, sorry, not deleted, shut down or rebooted, then public IP would remain same. Why? Because that public IP is known as a fixed public IP. Here it is known as a elastic IP. So you create an elastic IP, you define to any instance. So if you have defined to this instance, okay, this would be able to access internet, because minimum requirement to communicate any instance over the internet is having public. Whether this is fixed or whether this is dynamic, on both cases this will be able to. Okay, now move here for private subnet. So how you would identify? On private subnet, you would not have a default route towards the internet gateway. Okay, maybe it would be on the NAT gateway or something, but would not have a internet gateway. So you would be able to identify that that is a private subnet. Okay, and in this private subnet, what the block size you can allocate to the private subnet? You can allocate between /16 to /28, not /29, not /30, not /31, or /32. You cannot do that. You cannot assign this. How many IP in /29 subnet? 4. Raj, how many IP in /29 subnet?
/29 has like
8.
60.
Right?
I think 8.
So these are usable.
Usable are 6.
Usable 6.
Okay. So because the reason is why we cannot take /28, okay, above to /28. The reason is first 4 IP and last IP are, so 5 IP are reserved. Okay, this is reserved by AWS for different purposes. We will talk about that in next slide, that which IP does what. So yeah, we can assign between /16 to /28. This is usual. However, if you require to go down, yes, you can do that. Okay, if you require /15, you can do that. /14 you require, you can do that, but not above to /28. The first 4 and last IP, 4 IP and last IP, including network ID, okay, and broadcast address, they cannot be assigned, okay, because they are reserved by AWS. Okay, now let's understand. Instance in VPC, let's say you have created any instance in the VPC, they want to communicate to each other. How they are communicating? Using the routing table, which is a route table. And the VPC security group or access control list is going to control the communication between them. So this is a small note. Let's go in further slide and let's understand why those IPs reserved and what is the reason for preserving these IP. So I would just make it a better slide. Okay, so these are the reserves. You can see for which region these are reserved. So let's say you have a sub that you have defined for within the VPC, and let's say this is a web zone subnet as an example. So let's say this is web zone subnet where you are putting your web server. So this one 10.0.0 for this one. This is network ID, we all know. And the last one is the program we have. These three IP addresses, first three IP addresses. First one, this is reserved for the routing. That means in each subnet there would be a virtual router by default. So that virtual router would have an IP, and that IP would be 10.0.0.1. Okay, but we cannot see this virtual IP. I mean this virtual router. But if you check in any instances the routing, so you would see that that instance would be pointing to first IP address of that subnet as a gateway. The second one, this is reserved for the DNS server. That means the DNS resolution, if anyone is doing, so it would be doing via this IP. And this third one, this is reserved for the future use, would be AWS. Maybe AWS is thinking that if additional services they want to launch, so they can do that. So these are the three IP, which I mean 5 IP, which we cannot use in the subnet. Now moving to next one. We have already talked about this one, I think. Subnets, private subnets and public subnet. If you have any question regarding this, you just let me know.
No.
Let's just discuss about implied router and routing table. This implied router we cannot see, okay, but it's somewhere in AWS that we can assume. Okay. However, if you want to configure implied router, you cannot configure. Okay. So this is completely virtual. This implied router is completely virtual. And what does this router do? Basically, it provides central routing function. That means you can understand I have to submit within one VPC. One subnet in zone A and the other subnet in zone B. They want to communicate with each other. Okay, how it is communicating? There is a router. So this all right. So I was talking about implied router. So we can say that this router, which you are able to see here, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, it's visible now.
Okay. So the router which you are able to see here, this is an implied router. Okay. So usually this is not visible in any network, but yes, it is there. And if your machine want to communicate, let's say you have a machine over here and machine over here, they want to communicate to each other. So how it is communicating? Via this router. And if your machine want to go to the internet gateway, This is internet gateway, and this would be on the VPC level. So if the machine want to access internet, so it must be going via internet gateway, right? So if this is the machine want to go to the internet, how it is going? Through this router, through this implied router only. So that's what it is mentioned there. Okay, implied route, about implied router. Now let's understand, if we just want to change the routing table, so how we can do that? In route table basically. So now we are just talking about route table. So we can have up to 200 route table per VPC. Means if we have a VPC, we created a VPC, and in this VPC, it doesn't matter how many subnets we created. But if we want to create routing table or route tables, okay, so number of route tables we can create up to 200, okay, where we can define the routing rules. And 50 routing entry we can do per routing table. Okay, so how many routes we can define here? Up to 50. 200 maximum routing table we can create, maximum, and up to 50 routes we can define here. When I say 50 routes, you can understand in this way. This is my VPC, and you can see the default routes. So I have just one. In the same way, how many I can create? I can create up to 50. And here, these are the routing rules you can see. Sorry, we can create 200 routing table, but routing rule, how many we can create? Up to 50. Okay, that's what it was mentioned on the slide. Moving further, each subnet, okay, within the VPC, each subnet must be associated with at least one routing table. Okay. So you can associate the subnets at least one routing table. Okay. If you do not associate, so by default, the default routing table would get associated to this subnet. So if you have 3 subnet, so at least, I mean, only one routing table you can associate here, not a multiple, right? And multiple subnet could have the same routing table. You can define multiple subnet same routing table. That means, let's say you just created one routing table, that is default one. And if you want to associate, so this default routing table would apply to this one, would get associated to this one, all subnet it would get associated. Right? So a subnet required routing table. Now let's understand main routing table, which is default one. You can edit it, but cannot delete it. The default routing table you cannot delete. And if you want to define the manual route table, okay, so you can assign to main routing table as well, and post that default one you can be deleted. Moving to next one, that is internet gateway. Let's talk about this internet gateway. What is this? So internet gateway is a virtual router that's connect a VPC to the internet. With the default VPC, you would get default internet gateway. This would default gets created. But if you want to create a custom one, okay, custom one. So in user created VPC, you need to create and attach the internet gateway. And you need to ensure that the subnet which you have in a custom created VPC, those subnets get routed through routing table towards the internet gateway. Okay. It also performs nets between your private and public IP, and it also supports both kind of network, IP version 4 and IP version 6. Any question about the internet gateway?
No.
Alright, so moving to next one, let's discuss about NAT gateway now. NAT gateway is a bit different than internet gateway, because in internet gateway you can create a both bidirectional communication, inbound and outbound both. Okay, but through NAT gateway it is unidirectional only. So it is able to do the netting, but it is also able to do the PAT.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll discuss here. What is the NAT gateway? It enable instance to private subnet. It enable instance in a private subnet to connect to the internet or other AWS services. Okay, it prevent the internet from it prevent the connection from the internet to initiate it to the private instances usually. So let's see if I have, yeah, this is the diagram you can understand. We have NAT gateway, and let's say my database server, due to any reason, they require an internet connection. So directly we cannot provide internet to them. How we can provide? We can provide through the NAT gateway. So if the database servers, which is obviously in the private network, because we don't expose the databases server over the internet. Okay, the reason is database server are very critical, and if we expose that, that is really dangerous. So let's say we got the database server which we have. It have the Oracle database. Okay, that means Oracle application is running, and now we need to patch this application. There is new version of Oracle is available. Let's say earlier it was running on 11G, and now we got new version. Okay, and we required to download or patch this or upgrade this particular application. So in that case, these database server required what? Internet connection. So if we attach public IP over here, or if we define the default route of this subnet towards the internet gateway, so that would be dangerous, because from internet anyone can access these databases. So what we will do, we will send their traffic to NAT gateway, and for the NAT gateway is doing a NAT, this private IP would get netted into the public IP, and through this NAT gateway doing the internet access. The NAT gateway would send the request to this router, and further it would go to internet. So this is how netting is working. So you can see here we have two subnet. One is the public one. So public one, you can see the default gateway is internet gateway. But for private one, what is the default gateway for the internet access? The NAT gateway. This is the NAT gateway.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, all right. So I'm just going back to this slide and going to show you some property of this NAT gateway. So we understand what it does basically. A NAT gateway is going to provide the internet communication, but this would be unidirectional, so that if directly anyone want to initiate the connection to private network from the internet, it is not possible. And when you are using this NAT gateway, this is chargeable. This is not free. So how it charged? It's charged based on hourly uses, and the data get processed through it for the transferring. So whatever the transfer rates or processing rate, based on that, it is going to charge. But this is not a too much amount. It's a minimum amount. But yes, this is chargeable. This is not a free of cost. To create a NAT gateway, what we required? The main property of creating a NAT gateway, we need to create this on the public subnet. The reason? It required a public IP, right? Any public subnet would require a public IP. Because to access the internet, this NAT gateway would require a public IP. Okay. So that's why we need to create this on the public subnet, where we can define elastic IP to this NAT gateway. When I say elastic IP, that means fixed IP, fixed static IP, public IP, we can define to this NAT gateway. And this is mandatory. It eliminates the requirement to assigning the public IP to an instances. So if you are using NAT gateway, again, I take the example of that database server. So to that database server, it have the private IP, let's say 10.0.0.1, not 1, but 4, let's say. This is the private IP of this server, /24. And now it required to have internet access. So what you can do two options. You can directly attach one elastic IP to this instance, okay, or you can route the traffic of this system via NAT gateway. So if you have NAT gateway, you can route the traffic of this system via NAT gateway for the internet access. So in that case, you don't require a public IP. That's what it is mentioned here. Sorry, here. Okay. Post creation of NAT gateway, you must update the route table associated with. Let's say you just created a NAT gateway, but you didn't update the routing table, which was associated to that private subnet. Would it work? No, it won't work. You're required to update the routing table as well. And if you delete the NAT gateway, so it is just going to deassociate the elastic IP. So whatever the elastic IP, static IP you have created, and it was assigned to NAT gateway, and NAT gateway gets deleted. So the elastic IP gets deassociated, but not deleted from your account. So it is still going to charge you for that elastic IP because AWS has reserved for you. So if you delete the NAT gateway, and if you don't require elastic IP, go and delete this elastic IP also. Because usually when we create elastic IP, yes.
It does not reduce.
All right, moving to next one. Other component, this we already understand this. NAT gateway we create on the public subnet. Now I'm just moving to next one, which is my security group. So here you can see the security group and you can see the list theory. So security group, similar, we have a firewall rule, right? So firewall rule, if we have the firewall rule, okay, what does those firewall does? So one, we have a local firewall rule, which is instance specific. So those are the security groups. So it's a virtual firewall work at ENI level. So when I say in ENI, that means this is a virtual network interface of your AWS. So let me take example of ENI first. Okay. So usually when we create a virtual machine, let me take example of on-premises. So let's say you want to create a virtual machine on-premises on your system. So what you does, basically you purchase the hardware. On the top of the hardware, you install the operating system or hypervisor. So let's say you have installed hypervisor. You have installed the hypervisor, okay? And post installing the hypervisor, you can create the virtual machine. So when you create a virtual machine, this is also going to create with the virtual machine, lot of virtual things it is going to create. It is also going to create a virtual network. So same way in AWS, because the instance is going to host it as a virtual machine, right? So with the instance, it is also going to create a virtual network. So on virtual network, if you want to allow, virtual network means network interface. On the virtual network interface, if you want to put the firewall to save your instance, okay, so what you can do, you can create a security group. Okay, so when you create a security group, that security group, either you can assign to multiple instance. Here you can see the one security group is assigned to instance A and instance B. or you can create multiple security group and you can assign individual to the instances. Okay, so in security group, what we create the rule to permit the traffic. Okay, by default everything is blocked. So if you just want to permit any traffic, so we define within the security group. Okay, so up to 5 security group per EC2 instances interface we can apply. In one interface of the EC2 instance, we can apply maximum 5 security group. Okay, and here we can define permit rule, not the deny rule. So whatever the traffic I just want to allow, I can allow. Rest of the traffic is by default blocked in the security group. And it work as a stateful. So this is working as a stateful. Stateful means when you apply allow, let's say, inbound or outbound rule. So reverse rule you don't need to allow. This is already like we have a firewall, stateful firewall. So it is working as a stateful firewall. Okay. On the top of this security group, we have network ACL, which is applied on the subnet level. The security groups gets applied on the instances level. And if you just want to apply on the entire subnet, let's say you just want to apply firewall rule on the entire subnet, so that you can, for that you can use network ACL. Okay, so sometimes what we require to do, sometimes we require to completely manage the things on the subnet level. So yes, we can do that. On the subnet level, we can apply the firewall rule. So now let's talk about network ACL. Here further. So this is some points about network ACL. Let me just clear this. And we know that this is acting as a network firewall through which we can control the traffic. Okay. So like we have Palo Alto checkpoint in our on-premises network. Okay, where we can define the rule, firewall rule. Similarly, here we can define the firewall rule by creating the network ACL, and those network ACL we can associate with the subnets. So we can associate with one or more than one subnet. So let's say I have created any network ACL. On the same network ACL, we can associate with the multiple subnets within the VPC. And when we create a VPC, by default, a default network ACL would get created. And in that network, default network ACL, all kind of traffic is allowed, whether inbound or outbound. All kind of traffic is allowed. But in custom network ACL, when you create your own network ACL, okay, it only all traffic is by default denied in the custom network ACL, and whatever the rules which we create to allow, those rules, based on that rule, the traffic would get allowed.
Okay.
Now moving to next one, that is a subnet. Any subnet if you have created, that subnet must get associated with network ACL. If you don't associate any network ACL to the subnet, it would take default one and associate to the subnet. Okay, this is the same thing is mentioned here. In one subnet, you can associate one ACL at a time. Multiple ACL you cannot define to one subnet. Moving to next one, this is an network ACL contains a numbered list. So in, like you have a firewall, right? You are managing the firewall. Here, if you want to manage the rule, so how you are managing the rule? By writing the number for that. Rule number 1, rule number 2, rule number 3, rule number 4, rule number 5, like this. So here we have numbered list of the rule within the ACL, and the order of the ACL evaluation is lower order. Okay, so whatever the lower order would be, that would be evaluated first, then next one, then next one, then next one. It doesn't matter whether you have defined top to bottom like that. So let's take an example. For example, let's say you have defined that any machine, okay, let's say 10.0.0.5, a port number 80 for this machine should be blocked. You have defined blocked here, and on number 2 the same rule you have defined to allow port number 80 for the same machine. Okay, so as a nature, if you have allowed over here, allowed, and here you have denied, so if you have denied on
Nice.
the first one, so it is going to take the first one, lowest order. Okay, let's say if you have allowed here, if you have allowed here and here you have denied, then
It only allows.
it will be allowed. Yes. So in network ACL, you can write both kind of rule, to deny the traffic, to allow the traffic, but not on a security group. So if we talk about the differences between security group and network ACL, so major difference is in network ACL we can write both kind of rule, deny and allow, but not on security group we can just write a rule to allow the traffic, not to deny. The another difference, network ACL would be applied on subnet level. If you want to apply on the host level or instance level, you cannot apply network ACL, but security group would be applied on the instance level, on the machine level. So this is the major difference. So if someone asks interview question, so you can reply in this way. Okay. Moving to next one, that is about VPC peering. So this is a small topic and let me just cover this. So what is the VPC peering actually? So VPC peering in a networking, okay, this is a connection between two VPC, that two or more than that, that enables route to traffic between them using private IP version 4 and IP version 6. That means, let's say you have created a VPC over here, VPC in Mumbai zone, and then you have created another VPC over here on, let's say, Ohio. Two VPC you have. Here you have taken a subnet 172.16.0. Sorry, VPC CIDR range /16, and here you have taken 10.0.0.0/8. Let's say you have taken. Now you just want that resources are here, want to communicate to resources over here. So what you require to do? You require to create a peering between them. When you create a peering, you don't require a private public IP address. Their private subnet would be able to communicate to the private subnet of Ohio data center VPC. Okay, so that's what it is mentioned here. The VPC peering is a networking connection. This is a peering, it is a networking connection between two VPC that enable route the traffic between them using private IP version 4 or IP version 6. So instances in either VPC can communicate with each other as if they are within the same network. So they would feel like they are in the same network. They don't require to changes on their gateway or other stuff, other thing. And you can create also VPC peering between different accounts. For example, let's say Ravinder has created his own account and I have created my own account. Okay, and we have created a VPC in each account, and now I just want to have the peering. So yes, you can do that. In organization, basically I would talk about the organization. In organization, they takes multiple AWS account. Okay, they create multiple accounts in the AWS. So they would have account for, you know, prod. They have the account for non-prod, and they would have account, let's say another account, maybe sandboxing for any kind of text testing. So if we want to have the communication between prod and not non-prod, due to any requirement, let's say we have any requirement that I just want to use my non-prod data to the prod. Let's say I have ASM, you know, F5 ASM. So let's say I have created some policy on the ASM for the non-prod, and we have tested a lot of things in the non-prod. Now that policy, I just want to export that into the prod. Okay. So for that, I just required a, you know, to do the VPC peering, a communication between prod and non-prod for some time. So we can do that between different account as well. Okay, it doesn't matter whether they are in same region or they have created their resources on a different region. So that's the VPC peering, and finally we have a VPN. So let's understand what is the VPN. This would be going to bridge your VPC to your on-site infrastructure with the private connectivity. So that's a VPN, and we can take the advantage of VPN using your VPN gateway. So let's say I have VPC on AWS. This is my VPC, and I just want to have the communication to my on-premises infrastructure. Okay, on-prem data. Data center. So what we can do, we can create a VPN connection. So we know that on premises we have the firewall, right? On the firewall we configure the VPN. Yes, we do configure the VPN on the firewall. So if we just want to create a VPN between my VPC and the firewall, so we can use the VPN gateway of, this is nothing but this is a VPN gateway of my VPC, and this is a VPN connections that we can use. This is the one way. The other way, if we have any router over here, and through router I just want to have MPLS connectivity, so that we can do using direct connect, DC, direct connect.